We've got Bonnie Yates on Skype and on the phone with us. We're so thrilled to have her with us. She is a special education attorney with the law firm of Hirji and Chow, and we call this Your Rights because knowing your rights can be the difference between getting what you need or what your child needs at school for an entire school year, if not for their entire future. So, Bonnie, welcome back to the show, first of all.
Thank you, Shannon.
Oh,
Happy to be here on this rainy day,
stylish.
thunderstorm day.
Yes. I love the hat and the scarf. It's all gorgeous.
If I told you its origin stories, would you like it better?
I'm sure that I would.
If I told you that the hat is goodwill and the scarf I picked up on the ground when I was running and nobody seemed to be looking for it, and it's like very warm alpaca wool, so I brought it home. I adopted it.
And they go so well together. It looks like you've been shopping at the loft, and to know that you got it at Goodwill and on the corner.
More like shopping in the dumpster, but that's another discussion.
That's another discussion. But I wanted to start, Bonnie, by just telling you that I had the opportunity to be on the phone with a mom who I was talking to her the other day, and she was expressing that her day wasn't going quite how she had hoped that it would. She was feeling a little bit low, and she thought to herself, you know what, I'm going to turn on Autism-Live and see what's happening. And she said that, I'm going to paraphrase, but she basically said, and Bonnie Yates was on, and she said, so I was able to take a big, deep breath and know that I was in the right place.
Oh,
isn't that lovely?
Yeah, I mean, the experience of the mother is very deep. We have all these expectations for ourselves about how we're supposed to make it all right for our kids and parent perfectly. I'm watching, my daughter go through the same thing because she's pregnant, and we all have these internalized expectations about how we're supposed to feel wonderful because this is such a life-transforming experience. And I, before we get started, and before I read the disclaimer, I was thinking about this last night because moms wear themselves out, in fighting back against this disability. And you gotta start thinking about what you can do sometime, even if it's just a short time, something nice for yourself, something that lets you catch your breath, something that allows you to gird your loins for the next thing you have to do for your child. And for people that give so much out to other people, like their families and their friends and so on, moms need to give a little bit more back to themselves. And if you can't figure out how to do that, I'd say close the door, go into the bathroom, wash your face with some nice soap, brush your hair out, put on some perfume, and treat yourself like, the beautiful soul that you are, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And you'll be modeling really healthy habits for your children.
I love that. Thank you.
I think, like I told this mom, I did this for 2 years straight on totally full-on mode, and then I was in burnout.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you got to remember, you're in it for the long game, not the short game.
Amen to that. Thank you, Bonnie Yates.
Anyway,
we love that. Can I say one thing before we? But wait, can we say one thing before that? I'm loving your beautiful glasses. I just want to let you know that we are getting a reflection on your glasses in case you have anything private on your computer.
No, I don't. But I could take them off.
No, they're fine. Well, you're beautiful both ways. I just don't want us to disclose anything that you didn't want us to. So
there's not. There's client files. Are you actually seeing words and things like that?
I'm not, but I just want to make sure that no one can, because I can't see what's on there.
Let's play it.
Okay.
Let's play it.
But you were going to give us the disclaimer and tell us about Hirji and Chow.
I can't see anything, so I'm going to put them on.
Okay.
I'm from Hirji and Chow. Hirji and Chow is a 6-attorney firm in Culver City. Our areas of interest and expertise are in, boy, the reflection is really bad, autism and disability discrimination. You can reach us at 310-391-0330. And when we answer questions on the show, we want you to know that, we're not giving legal advice because legal advice is specific. the answers we're giving to questions are based on what the law says and shouldn't be construed as advice. And so, we have to walk carefully, and if you need help with your individual problem and you're in Southern California and you'd like a complimentary consult, you can give us a call at 310-391-0330, and we can get more focused on your specific problem that way.
Very good. Very good. And it is well worth it, my goodness, to get to spend some time talking with you about particulars about a case is a fabulous thing. I encourage people to get your stuff together and call Bonnie and call Hirji and Chow to do that. We also want to, I know people had sent in some questions this week, but I wanted to finish up with dyslexia, and nothing was particularly pressing. They were more in general in nature, but Bonnie and I specifically want to ask anybody who's watching, we are about to enter IEP season, and Bonnie has said, send me the IEP questions, let's wade in, let's answer about IEPs, everything that you guys need to know going into your IEPs. So be sending those questions in to us. But Bonnie, we're going to finish up with dyslexia today, I hear.
We are, and I have one more thing to say on the subject of mom care. Okay, there are a number of moms and dads who work in public education, and those parents oftentimes are given the hardest time about advocating for their own kids with a disability. So I'm just giving a shout out to the teachers out there and the paraprofessionals and stuff like that. You don't need to feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty about asking for help. I think there's that sometimes, like, districts punish their own harder than anybody. So,
I agree.
Moms, you have a duty and you have a right to assert your child's rights on his or her behalf. Anyway, where we are in dyslexia is we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. We're getting down to the last kind of part of the discussion about reading, and it's technical, so it involves me talking about and reading to you terms that are all in play in terms of how children learn or don't learn how to read. Once we finish that, we're going to go into a discussion about 504 plans versus IEPs, and then we're just going to start doing like all IEP stuff all the time for a while. There's so much to talk about there, and we're going to get everybody ready for IEP season. So where we left off was in terms of the state's suggestion for how to do universal screening for kids in kindergarten to make sure that they don't have the signs of a potential learning disability. And then the guidelines seem to suggest that you take kids that have some problems and you put them in groups and you give them more intensive instruction. And my question about this to the guidelines people is, well, wouldn't you want to err on the side of being cautious with those kids and do an assessment? But that's not the way the guidelines work, right or wrong. They suggest you break the kids up into groups, and sort of the less severe but still needing additional support would be worked on in a group several times a week for 20 to 40 minutes with a 1 to 5 adult instructional ratio. And then the more severe group for 4 to 8 weeks. And then the more severe group, they would tackle similar things, but the way they would do it is they would drop the, sorry about all the paper, they would drop the instructional ratio down to 1 to 3. So at a certain point, the suggestion was that the evaluator, whether it was a speech and language pathologist, a school psychologist, or a teacher, whoever's doing it, or even a paraprofessional, whoever's doing the tutoring has to make the call as to whether the more severe group, if they don't respond well to intervention, should be referred to IDEA for an assessment. So what I'm keying on that was interesting in this discussion is the comment that, quote, for dyslexia, you need evidence-based, multisensory, direct, explicit, structured, and sequential approach to instruction. And so you can see there that the notion that we find in programs like Linda Mood Bell, which is that these kids are often weak on certain channels, and they need to receive the information in a multimodal way in order to learn, is being extended beyond reading, and it's being suggested that multimodal teaching is going to be necessary for this group of kids for a lot of skills that they're not learning. They also make a point that you can't use putting people in this tutorial intensive for 4 to 8 weeks as a way to delay giving somebody a referral to special education or an assessment. They then talk about how teachers can do the progress monitoring. They need to know the strengths and weaknesses of the kids. They need to have a method by which each skill is assessed to see if there's going to be progress at the end of the tutoring period. And there needs to be a relation to what outcome measures, what the outcome measures reflect. In other words, what do the test results reflect as compared to what's being taught in class? So in other words, to see whether the intervention is actually helping the students pick up more of the information that's being taught simultaneously in class. And then, of course, the information can be graphed, and teachers need to work with other people on the team to figure out what the graphs mean about skill acquisition. So this is where the guidelines get kind of nerdy, but I think in a really good way. It just requires a little more effort on our part. So on page 49 of the guidelines, they have a very technical and very interesting chart. And you just have to sit with it for a little while. And then even though it's dense, you'll see that it's actually really helpful. So the first category of problem is phonological awareness. So in other words, they're saying this is what dyslexia looks like if somebody has a problem specifically with phonological awareness. So phonological awareness refers to an individual's awareness of and access to the sound structure of oral language. It is the understanding that spoken language can be divided into smaller units and that those units can be identified and manipulated. So the question is, how does it look in dyslexia if somebody can't break down the smaller units of a word and sort of play with them orally, move them around, sound them out, so on, right? So how it looks in dyslexia is the person presents with difficulties in phonological awareness, especially phonemic awareness. It is one of the best predictors of dyslexia and a key predictor of early literacy acquisition. So what you're seeing here is the whole notion that, we can't figure any of this out until the student is in 3rd or 4th grade is not true. There's a way to look on a more microscopic level at what the student is or isn't doing, let's say in terms of their phonological awareness, and that will be a strong clue in terms of whether or not this person has dyslexia. Rudimentary ability to blend, segment, and manipulate phonemes within words and syllables is a prerequisite for understanding phonics. These basic skills of blending, segmenting, and manipulating phonemes facilitate students' understanding of the place value of the sequence of graphemes and phonemes within words. So a big predictor of dyslexia and reading problems would be difficulties with that phonological awareness.
And can I pause there for a second and just say, whenever somebody talks about phonemic awareness, my ears perk up, because this is a thing that even though I was a teacher and I was a college professor and a speech teacher, and then later I went to teach in upper grades. I never taught kindergarten, 1st grade, or 2nd grade. I knew what a phoneme was, but I didn't understand that people could have a difficulty and a disability in phonemic awareness. So this was news to me as a mom, and where I discovered it is that there's an entire section of skills, which is the tool that, the online tool that we talk about a lot on the show, that is just about phonemic awareness. There's a way to assess your child for phonemic awareness in skills, and there's a way to address it and strengthen it with your child in skills. And it's a section of skills that doesn't get talked about a great deal, but I knew when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense, because so often in the classroom, I would be there with a kid and you would say something like, I need everybody to put your math book away and take out your science book and turn to page 45. And a significant portion of the classroom would do it, but there would be one or two kids that often didn't. And other teachers would tell me, oh, well, that kid just misbehaves. That kid doesn't pay attention. That kid, and they would label them all these other things. But I saw that it wasn't computing. That, and you see this a lot with kids who don't have phonemic awareness, that somebody says something, it's that receptive language piece. Somebody says something and it takes them longer to break it down because they don't understand it. And the idea that that's a predictor of dyslexia, you just blew my mind, Bonnie, because we see that with a lot of our kids in autism, that it takes them years longer if they don't get intervention before, and then all of a sudden their receptive language kicks in because they get the phonemic awareness. So that is fascinating.
Well,
Thank you.
that's good. It's a little nerdy,
I
but I
love it.
think, you know, in the interest of really understanding, I think we do have to get a little bit more detailed about all this. The other thing I wanted to say at the beginning that I should have, and I forgot to, even though it was in my notes, is I'm just having a really hard time going to IEP meetings now, because I've talked to some teachers who have worked in the public schools, and I've also had some classroom assessments recently. And what we're seeing in some cases, and this is anecdotal only, but it's very concerning, is that not much is being done in the learning centers. People are basically just given busy work to do, or they're told to do their homework, or they're watching movies, or they're having people read to them, and none of that is intervention.
Yeah.
So it reinforces the unfortunate fact that you really don't know what's going on with your kid in school unless you're a room mother or father and you volunteer 25 hours a week. You're a former teacher and you volunteer enough to know what to look for in terms of how things are going on the playground or in the gen ed classroom or in resource. You know, otherwise, we're sort of trusting their assurances that these things are meaningful when written into the IEP and they will be worked on. And what I'm finding is that a lot of the time that's not happening. And I want to caveat this with, this is purely based on anecdotal information that I'm getting from people, but I am getting told, like, well, yeah, they've offered that service, but their behavior team is way too busy. They're never going to be able to give all those hours, or whatever the the example is. So that's really bumming me out a lot. The next kind of criterion that the chart looks at is rapid naming, letters, numbers, colors, and objects, and why that's relevant to the understanding of whether somebody has a reading disorder. So basically, rapid naming is stuff like, you know, can you say BONNIE really fast?
Ooh.
Or can you say, you know, TAB backwards, TAB backwards really fast, and so on. And so phonological processing is required in order to be able to do this kind of rapid naming, but additionally requires executive functioning, attention, and fluency, among other abilities. And so a strong predictor of dyslexia, but less so than phonemic awareness or alphabet knowledge, would be this rapid naming. But it's likely that those with difficulties in phonemic awareness and rapid naming also have more severe forms of dyslexia. Inability to kind of recognize individual letters in a word or to name the individual letters is one of the best predictors of dyslexia, and it's a key predictor of early literacy acquisition. So if your child can't spell his name, or you teach him his name over and over, but he doesn't hang on to it, that's not normal. And that's not autism either, that's something else. Should I keep going? Okay, so the next category of things that are looked at is grapheme-phoneme association. And I got out my little dictionary and I looked these things up because I didn't know what grapheme-phoneme association was. But the way grapheme phoneme association works is like if you have the word B-E-E, E-E is the grapheme, but E is the phoneme. So like E-E spells E, but you have to write it out for a reader to be able to tell that that's how it sounds. So anyway, I don't think that's the best description I could have given, but it's the ability to associate graphemes, in other words, written letters, with the phonemes they spell. So if you have difficulties in this area, that's the hallmark sign of dyslexia. So you really want to key in on grapheme phoneme association, because it's probably, if your child has grapheme phoneme association problems, it's probable that what you've got going on is a big problem in phonological processing, and you probably are dyslexic. Single word decoding is important. Decoding of real words is the ability to use systematic decoding strategies to accurately identify and pronounce real words through grapheme phoneme association. So, dyslexia involves a specific difficulty in word and non-word pseudo-word decoding that is based on a weakness in the phonological aspect of language. There's a direct relationship between difficulties in grapheme phoneme and phoneme grapheme associations and these decoding abilities. So you see what they're doing is they're taking each aspect of reading in the chart and they're breaking it down and they're showing you how it goes wrong when you have dyslexia or a related reading disability, which is fascinating to me because of the effortless way that a lot of people learn how to read and how many things can go wrong and how broken this process can get and how important it is, therefore, to have people providing support who have training in response to intervention type methods that are going to produce a result. If you're just doing kill and drill or whistling, in the dark or reading to the child, and you're not teaching from a systematic curriculum the skills of each part of reading, then it's probable that the disability of dyslexia is not going to get remediated. So they go on to talk about reading comprehension. I think most of you know what that is. It involves both literal or explicit understanding as well as inferential understanding, and students with dyslexia may have difficulty in reading comprehension, whereas they will have strengths in listening. A lot of dyslexics have a very strong auditory channel in that way. Oral reading fluency. Okay, the accuracy, speed, and prosody, intonation, and meaningful phrasing of a student's reading of a text at an instructional level is what's meant by oral reading fluency. And students with dyslexia have often poor reading fluency due to a number of factors, including poor decoding, limited awareness of syntax, an underlying processing deficit, and interestingly, in adults with dyslexia who've had remediation, they will be doing much better, but they will still, for example, maybe read at a really slow speed because they're having to be much more effortful about doing all those things that the rest of us readers do effortlessly. So just to wrap up, because I think we're out of time, right?
We're close, yes. We came to you late, so we're running a little late.
Well, there's other areas to cover that are implicated in dyslexia: encoding, phonological memory, oral language, syntactic processing, morphological processing, orthographic processing, and handwriting. And for the last two, I'm just going to skip this. You can look at the chart in the guidelines if you want to know how the other areas are implicated. But orthographic processing is the writing system of a language. Spelling, which includes conventions, punctuation, and capitalization. Knowledge of orthography is stored in memory in the form of rules and representations of words or parts of words and used to read and spell words. Handwriting consists of text generation and transcription skills. Transcription skills can further be broken down into handwriting and spelling. Handwriting for written expression requires the integration of orthographic knowledge. It is often assessed by the quality of written letters, e.g. consistency and ability to anchor letters on lined paper, and also by fluency, e.g. writing letters of the alphabet and copying under time conditions. So there's just one more box if I have one more minute,
Yep.
Shannon.
Yep.
Okay, so written composition, that's a skill. Written composition, writing mechanics, and writing fluency. Broadly defined, written expression includes a complex set of abilities: idea generation, organization of ideas, ability to generate topic sentences, supporting sentences and concluding sentences, and editing and revision, as well as mechanics, capitalization, punctuation, handwriting, and keyboarding, vocabulary, spelling, grammar, and syntax, e.g. sentence structure. So for those of us that don't have a writing fluency problem, what we have in terms of a skill is the ability to smoothly and effortlessly compose written text. But students with dyslexia often have poor written expression, writing mechanics, and writing fluency, although there's no established evidence that these are important signs of dyslexia. However, they are seen in students with dysgraphia and are a highly comorbid condition in students with dyslexia. So the reason I threw in the last part about written composition is because so many of the kids that we see that have a diagnosis of autism have big, messy, loopy writing, and there's always a fight going on about when and for how long they should be given OT services. And so that it's interesting that there's some crossover with this problem in dyslexia as well. So you've got, very complex processes going on in terms of reading, writing, and so on. And if your child is having trouble in these areas, you need to get a good understanding of what the source of the problem is and how to best teach to it.
Absolutely. Bonnie, if somebody wanted to get this guide that you've been reading from, where would they find it?
You Google California Dyslexia Guidelines. I just looked for it the other day to give it to somebody, so I know it's there. Okay. California Dyslexia Guidelines. It's about a 100-page booklet.
Okay.
So we're getting there.
We are.
We're almost done with the nitty-gritty, and I'm going to speed it up now and summarize more things, and next time we'll talk about kind of the remaining content in the pamphlet. But for people that are, I have a lot of people come in and they're struggling with the fact that their child isn't learning how to read and nobody seems to know what to do. It seems like at least this would give you the ability to do some, diagnostics in terms of you can try the skills that they're talking about and see whether or not your child can do them. I didn't go to the trouble of breaking it down so much, but each box in the box chart explains, like, well, this is a phoneme. So you could take your child and sit down and just probe his or her basic understanding of phonemes and take some data on it, and it would tell you something.
Yeah, and if you want to get more extensive, the truth is that whole, you can probe and assess that all on skills very easily.
Good point.
That's skillsforautism.com. And it will even then, if you ask it to, spit out a benchmark that's appropriate for an IEP. And you could say, I've looked up the guidelines, the California guidelines on this, and I assessed it in skills, and here's the benchmark. And certainly I would think at an IEP they would have to listen to you if you had that kind of corroboration. So
yeah, well, it suggests that we should have a separate program called the Best of Skills. And start telling people about all the hidden gems that are in there.
Absolutely.
That they can use.
Because that's certainly one of them. So that's a cool thing. Now, unfortunately, we are out of time. Please give us the understanding of how to get a hold of Heerji and Chow and you at the same time.
Okay. Shannon always tells me that our email is lawyer4children.com, like www.lawyer4children.com, and our phone number is 310-391-0330. Thank you, everybody, for wading through this. I hope it was useful. we want to continue to give you stuff that, isn't just theoretical, but it's actually stuff you can use at your IEP meetings.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, and thank everybody at Hear G and Chow. And if you've got an issue and you're in the state of California, give them a call. Do the free consultation, and I don't think that's what you call it, but
That is what I call it.
that is what you call it. Okay. So check out Hear G and Chow, lawyer for children.com. Bonnie,
Bye,
thank
Shannon.
you so
See you
much.
next week.
All right, take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we have a fabulous guest. Thomas Scheel has been standing by. We're running a little bit late, Thomas. I apologize. He is the founder and CEO of, I'm pronouncing it Unipie, but let's see what he calls it. This is a dating and social skills service for individuals on the spectrum. Stick with us.